Thank you, Ayo.
Now, you as the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency, it has been a wonderful experience, if I may say, looking at how you've been able to gather all the staffs and indeed every other stakeholder as it concerns IT in this country, information technology, to ensure that we move that sector forward. Been there for, say, like roughly 8 years. Now, let's start off right away looking at the national IT policy. I mean, the implementation of the national IT policy, which government has already entrusted into the hands of the agency, talking about NIDA. Has the agency been able to deliver on its mandate, in trying to make Nigeria an IT-capable country in no distant future?
Yes, when I was appointed a DG back in 2005, we had there was no act for the agency. We got an act in April 2007. And since then, we have done a lot of things. First thing I would like to do is capacity building. We have trained a lot of people in the industry, both in the public and private sector. Back in 2009, we trained 6,100 unemployed graduates. 2006, we trained 600 people for skills development. And through the past 4 or 5 years, we have been training up to about 1,500 unemployed IT graduates throughout the country in each state. We have done a lot in internet penetration throughout the states. When I first came in, the penetration of IT in the country was, in fact, Nigeria was rated about 192, 193 rating in IT globally. But right now, we're about 91, 92 rating globally. Back in Africa, we are number 1. We have about 50 million IT penetration in the country right now. Still on capacity building, back in 2010, we started a scholarship for graduates. We now have a graduate scheme where we train IT graduates in masters and PhD. So far, 19 of our master students have come back to the country, working in several areas in capacity building. Institutional development, you may recall that back in 2005, 2006, our domain registration was done outside the country. But now you must have heard of NIRA, which actually does domain registration in the country. That is one of the achievements we have got. Still on IT penetration, 2007, we started a very small project, which we call Rural Information Technology Centers, which actually brings IT centers to grassroots in rural areas and unserved communities. Currently, we have over 300 of them scattered throughout the country. Just last week, I was in Ogun State, where we commissioned up to 7 of the projects that were actually nurtured by the agency. We 182 graduates passed out after extensive training on IT for 6 months, and we matriculated 200, all in Ogun State, which was very impressive. Still on what we have done so far, 2010 we had a fairly different scheme, apart from the rural information technology. Those ones are actually in rural communities. But 2010, we thought that these centers are more applicable in institutions, secondary schools, colleges of education, polytechnics, universities. Currently, we have over 140 of them scattered in our institutions. And we actually see that the students are very excited because most people who want to actually use computers can now use them. And how are these, these institutions using it? We have solar panels, solar power, they are solar powered. We have a VSAT. We have other computing equipments that actually are used in all those centers.
Now, Professor, I don't know if you will agree with me that it seems most of our primary schools in the country right now aren't really getting enough in terms of making IT available to them as it obtains in most parts of the world, the developed world in particular. What can you say about this trend?
We have done even something more. We had a program in 2006 called Catch Them Young. A Catch Them Young program, we launched it in 2 states, Kaduna and Delta State. What we did was we now went with a training scheme for 2 weeks, where we now train them on graphics, computer games, what computers can do. These are primary schools, kids, 7 to 9 years. The second day, we saw a very dramatic change. They came with their parents, and they were so excited. Our slogan was, instead of buying a computer, instead of buying a television set, buy a computer system, which can actually be used as a television and a computing system. At the end of the course, what they asked was, look, DG, we need working tools. We need computers. 2 weeks is not enough. Last year, we are partnered with one of our entrepreneurs to write computer books for secondary schools. You can look at the books. I will give you a copy, complete set, where the guy now came up with how computers could be taught in schools, the content of it, and so on. And these books are circulated to all the states in their libraries. So we are, more or less what I'm trying to tell you is, we are also partnering with private organizations for computer literacy, computing penetration to the states.
Let's even look at the IT literacy in our government institutions, both the federal and indeed the state governments, or perhaps the local governments as well. How have we been able to ensure that staffs at government levels make use of IT to enhance their performance and make sure that the government really makes its programs and policies available to the generality of our people?
Back in 2004, we came out with a scheme. We had a collaboration with UNECA, United Nations organization, to look at how ICT can be used. And we had what we call ICT4D, Information and Communication Technology for Development. What we came out was that there are 11 distinct sectors where you can actually use information and communication technology. And what it does is it now looks at how you can use ICT for education, for health, for tourism, in all sectors. And that publication was actually the manual that was used for Vision 2020. We have gone further than that. It has all aspects of how we can actually use it to implement ICT in all the sectors. Currently, you may be aware that NIDA is actually the clearinghouse for ICT in all MDAs. We also collaborate with states, how they can come out with IT policy. Because in any country, if you want to use IT, you have to get a policy. So we actually talk to state government MDAs in the federal government, and so on. So we pioneer literacy, IT literacy, not only in the federal government, but also in the states. We do that. Apart from that, we are also collaborating with states on IT parks and software engineering centers. Currently, we have an MOU with Cross River State Government. You know TINAPA. We want to actually revolutionize that area with Cross River State to provide IT park, software testing centers, and so on. We have also software incubation centers in Lagos, in Lagos, Broad Street, and so on.
Now, Professor, I don't know if you really share this view that perhaps we still need to give IT a much more, should I say, attention, in terms of making it relevant, adequately relevant in all parts of our country. Which brings to the question, perhaps, if you feel that the IT sector needs some special intervention. Some even say that perhaps we need to have a ministry on its own, a Federal Ministry of Information Technology.
We are, because if you look at it, IC actually can be applied in all sectors. But Nigeria is a very great country. The infrastructure, we have also challenges. Power system, which is actually coming up. And we also need equipment for the universities, because the teaching and the practice of IT needs to be actually stepped up in the universities. We need more research areas. By the way, we also actually have a research scheme. We provide research funds for researchers who want to do any research in IT. We provide funds. What I'm saying is we collaborate with institutions, higher institutions, because the universities are actually set up to actually do research. And we need more training tools in the universities and polytechnics. I'm aware that not everybody can do research. We need middleman power. Look at our original equipment manufacturers, Zyno, Somatech, and so on. We need more of that in the private sector. And if we need that, we also need people who have to maintain those equipment. Currently, the middleware to actually set up or do back after sales training is lacking. We need more people in that sector. You can see most of our youth are unemployed, and so we need more training. We need more workforce to go into the competing field. How can we do that? We have to go back to our drawing board.
Indeed, mathematics is key in all what we've been talking about so far.
If you go to India, where there is a powerhouse of IT, you have a lot of people who actually specialize in science and engineering. And those are the people that will actually, equip our universities, to do computer science and its allied areas. So we need more of that. We have to also make the teaching profession more attractive, by providing more funds, more collaboration, because the researchers cannot actually do it alone. We need to collaborate with the universities, with the private sector, the industries, and engineering factories have to collaborate with them. I think that's part of it. If you look at it critically, you can see that most of our students, when they come out, they don't have hands-on, experience. So when they come to, look for a job, there is no experience. So, be it in oil and sector and other areas, they still actually import people to come and work, and so on. Nigeria is a very good place where we can do a lot of outsourcing. Outsourcing if India, South Africa, and other places, Russia, a lot of things are going on outsourcing. In terms of time zone, we are ready. So we need to actually bring up our workforce, our youths, to actually get ready for the next stage, outsourcing, and apply, computers in all our areas.
So in other words, we're still saying that a lot more work still needs to be done. We're still scratching the surface. We've not really gone
yes, because if you look at our universities, not much is going on in computer engineering, in computer science. Even if you go there, the equipments are not there. We need more equipments, more funding, not only for the researchers, but for provision of tools. If we really have to go into vision, if we want to capture the 20th basic economy in the year 2020, we still have a lot to do.
Are we also taking cognizance of the fact that we have loads and loads of people who are physically challenged in our society, and trying to make sure that we provide IT for them as well? Is the agency looking at that, and what's been done so far?
No, we haven't done much. We haven't done much there. Last year, we actually provided some equipment for the physically challenged in those areas. We need more manufacturers in that area. Right now, we are just consuming. We are not producing. Production has to go in all sectors, both hardware and software. Hardware, we are trying. Software, we are trying, but hardware, not much. We are still assembling. We need to actually produce in that area.
Rightly so. But what does this actually portend, and in what danger does this portend for the industry or the IT sector if we don't start really addressing the need to empower our physically challenged people, on IT development?
We'll continue to import, and the foreign reserve will not actually say much of what we are doing. Suppose the oil production goes down, what do we actually depend? That is why we are stepping up software development. Because if you have the knowledge, you can always produce, and you are creative, proactive. Software development is actually the answer. And I think Nigerians are very capable of doing that.
All right, Professor, let's quickly take this break and continue with our discussion, looking at the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, on Question Time. Professor Cleopas Angai is our guest. Stay with us, and we'll be right back.
You see, life has just got easier. You stay connected to Channels TV, where news and innovations are shaping our world. Simply log on to channelstv.com to get the breaking news. Browse the homepage according to what matters to you. Tap on the extended coverage of business, sports, politics, lifestyle, infotech, entertainment, health, world news, and lots more. Click on the live link and see the news in real time. Do you want to watch the latest video of the day? It's just a click away. Friend us on Facebook, YouTube, follow us on Twitter, Google+, participate in Channels TV poll, and share your comments. It's a website you can talk to. Your voice will be heard.
ChannelsTV.com. The news at your fingertips.
You're welcome back. It's still Question Time on Channels Television. Professor Cleopas Angai, the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, is still here with us, and we've been talking quite extensively on the need to develop our IT sector, especially when you talk about software development and, of course, encouraging some of our youths, or if not a majority of our youths, scattered across the country and indeed our communities to begin to see the need why they should become IT compliant or IT literate in all spheres of our economy. And of course, we're talking about Vision 2020, which is just around the corner. Now, Coming back home now, looking at the issue of software development, I look at some young Nigerians, especially in our urban areas, where they seem to have this flair, this natural flair, or they use their ingenuity, so to speak, and to go the extra mile, fixing some of these electronic gadgets, that has to do with IT and other things, or even developing these softwares that we've talked about in the course of our discussion. But I ask, what exactly can we do to encourage these young Nigerians, to make them relevant, like it's been done in other parts of the world, the developed world?
I talked of incubation fund. We are, through the Ministry of Communication Technology and NIDA, you must have been hearing for the past months that we have been trying to come out with funds, seed money, that will assist youths to set up small, projects which they can now fund, which we can now assist in funding. And software development, if you look at India, some years ago, nobody actually knew what India was producing. But now, you can now look at India's IT, software development, outsourcing, and other areas in IT.
All right, let me take you back to the issue of the rural information technology centers, which you talked about. My understanding is that we have about 228 of them, that has already been set up across the nation. Now, what were the reasons behind this?
Well, the reason is to bring development to the grassroots. That is a grassroots-oriented program where information and communication technology is now sent to the doorstep of rural areas. Even though we have some challenges in setting up and then maintaining them, we have sustainability problems. For instance, we have frequent breakdown of our solar systems. We have, when the bandwidth expires, how do we actually renew them? Government will set up a program, and you can't actually do it forever. We know some programs are social problems. There should be an outlet. We need also some contribution from the community. And in most cases, it's not coming in the way we expect.
When you say contribution?
Contribution, well, suppose there was no IT in the community. You will still need to post letters. You will still need to get how you can do assignments, transmit messages. You have to find a way to actually talking to somebody outside the community. But now, information and communication technology has made it very easy. How? You can, send immediate messages to somebody several miles away. You can send documents, transmit documents far away because of information technology. You know how we are getting letters in those days, but now through IT you can get it. So what I'm trying to say is, if communities now get those services at their doorsteps, they can still contribute. And if a commercial operator will charging 150 naira per hour for using a cafe, if government sets up, even if you pay 50 naira, it goes a long way to actually supplement bandwidth provision in that community. Some communities actually do that. The communities I'm quoting from Ogun State, you can see how students are happy. After school, no job, but after about 6 months training in IT, they can now see jobs. They can now put data into computers, do minor document processing in the offices. So most of office duties are more efficient, more proficient because of that training. So with that, it actually develops the economy, because not everybody is now depending on government. At least some people can be self-employed. You can do web marketing, in several ways, stock, marketing, and so on. So with that, the economy actually becomes very vibrant. Yeah, if I use actually occupied in that way, there will even be less crime, in the society. The society is more purified, more informed. Government can do more e-government processes. E-governance is a scheme where government can actually provide services to its citizens through, using ICT. And people in those communities can now see birth rate, death rate, jingles, announcements from government, messaging becomes very easy in local governments.
Professor, how about adopting ICT or IT, to enhance our political process? Talk about what we hear concerning electronic voting, and several developed parts of the world are beginning to key into that. Can we really use that here in this country? Will it benefit us, for our elections and the general landscape of our politics, our political life?
Even before you go to election, let's look at ordinary e-agriculture. When I went to India, see how they utilize ICT in Agric. Crop production. Some crops grow better in some regions than other regions. ICT can help. Crop marketing. When you have your crops, if they are not actually evacuated and sold in time, you may have problems. But with e-agriculture, you can communicate and know how crops are actually grown and sold. Apart from that, pesticides, you want to actually use certain pesticides. Some could be dangerous to some crops. Through e-agriculture, you can actually do that. Irrigation system, control, and so on. E-agriculture can actually assist you. When we are even doing an election, there was a lot of problems in the other one, which government actually came up to solve them. If you have so many of them in local governments, remote areas, election results can be easily transmitted, recorded, transmitted, announced, and collated very easily. And with that, election doubts and so on would never arise.
Now, Prof, as you wrap up your 8-year tenure, which ends sometime in the middle of this year, what would you actually say has been the major prospect or major achievement for you as the Director General of this agency? And what other challenges or what other prospects do you have for the IT sector, in the next few years, even after you might have left office as DG?
Well, main focus is actually provide internet penetration to all citizens. Which way we can do that? Institutional, that had been the main focus. The challenges have been acceptability of the projects, sustainability of the projects. Like when we're talking about rural information technology centers, how can we sustain them? How do we have to do it forever? Not really, because government funding cannot be forever. So sustainability of projects had been the case. At a point, we had a lot of problems on actually retention of qualified staff. How do we retain qualified staff? Because oil industry is there, banking is there, and software development agencies which were paying more. But now I think it's a little bit better now because we have been doing a lot, so that is not the case. But retention of staff had been a big problem in 2007, 2008. We still have a lot to do. We still need funds, more money, because more communities actually ready to actually use information ICT. And if you have that, you have to now deploy them. how to maintain it, how to sustain it, I think that is still a problem. The infrastructure in the country is also a challenge. For instance, we have solar energy systems. The conventional power may go off. How can we actually use our system? Because when the high tension power comes, maybe some of our solar systems may blow up. Continuous maintenance and backup.
Well, Prof, I really do hope that in the near future, and of course presently, that there will be a lot more support from indeed the government and other concerned stakeholders for us to really develop our IT sector in our rural communities and in our educational institutions, especially